Mike. Good morning. Hopefully that's close enough. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors here in the original boardroom in Coachella. It's October 26, 2021. I mean, doesn't it feel weird? It doesn't. It's like we've never been in here before. I don't know. I don't get it. It's kind of like when you go back to your kindergarten and everything seems so small. Yeah. That's what it feels like. All right, let's do the introductory remarks. I'd like to make clear for the record that this meeting is being conducted as permitted under AB 361 in an effort to protect public health, prevent the spread of COVID-19, and because state and or local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. The public may view this board meeting online or virtually. The public may also attend the meeting in person, and the meeting is being live streamed on the district's website, cbwd.org, under the Board Agendas tab. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wish to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the district or any item on the agenda may provide comments in person at this meeting or via Zoom. And I don't know if at this time, do we have any?
Mr. President, we do not have any participants or members of the public at this time online, but I will notify you if
let me know.
happens.
Thank you. And then we have all the board members who are attending are actually attending in person. Director Nelson will not be attending as far as we know. So we don't need to worry about the roll call votes because we're all here. Isn't that nice? So would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell.
Here.
Vice President Estrada.
Here.
Director Bianco.
Here.
And Director Aguilar.
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. Are we aware of any additions or deletions for today's agenda adjustments? No?
No, sir.
Nor am I. And I'm guessing the public comment hasn't changed since 3 seconds ago.
That is correct.
So if anyone wishes to make public comment, now would be a good time. Or we might have opportunities as items come up.
Correct.
Let's see then. We have the consent calendar, items 5A through J. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That was passed 4-0. Presentations and recognitions. There's quite a... Uh-oh. My computer doesn't want to give it to me. I had it last night and it went away.
Hang on.
You know what? I tried to sync it or synchronize and something bad
It's on your
happened.
screen, Pure. Oh, no.
Oh.
You gotta read it.
Yeah, the narratives. Unless somebody else wants to do it. I can use Jim's contaminated laptop.
You want to spray it first? Yeah, just for those folks that may be wondering, I was on 2 weeks vacation and I just flew back into Palm Springs late last night. 2 different airplanes, 4-hour layover in Dallas-Fort Worth, hour waiting for my bags at Palm Springs. I just figured out of an abundance of caution, until I can get tested, I'd wear a mask. But I feel fine. I've taken my temperature 4 times in the last 12 hours. All good. I can still smell and taste, so I think I'm okay, but we'll see.
Well, we appreciate that. And I always wonder if you're wearing the mask to protect yourself or to protect the people around you.
I'm totally wearing it to protect the people around me.
Yeah, and personally, I'm vaccinated, so
As I am.
I'm not worried, but I'll actually touch your thing here. How about that?
I think. Maybe you're actually touching my iPad.
We're doing so well for a moment there.
I know.
Downhill.
We're doing really well. So we have a number of them. We have, and some folks are here, so we'll go through those, but we have a number that are not attending. So there's one anniversary, 20 years, Michael Munoz, Facilities and Maintenance Supervisor, so congratulations to Michael on 20 years. And then we have some retirements. Brent Stewart is not here, right? Lead water management specialist 2 with 30 years, so that's a nice retirement. And there's a write-up in the online if you want to see it. Miguel Navarro, electrical assistant supervisor, 16 years, also retiring and not present, right? And then we have Jim Kreisinger, construction inspector 2, with retiring with 35 years, and I can read that one.
He's not here.
He's not here.
He's not here either?
Yeah, he just-
Okay.
Victor is the only one that is
Well,
present.
we're going to skip that one then. And if you want to read his write-up, it's in the online also. And then, so Victor's the only one here. And then we also had Robert White, distribution operator 2 with 29 years. And Angela's not here either, huh? Angie, huh?
No.
Angela Johnson retiring, lead water management specialist 2 with 22 years. So that brings us back to Victor Flores, storekeeper 3 with 30 years and retiring. Victor's entire career has been in the warehouse. He knows how parts are used in the district's water system. If something is not in stock, he will recommend alternate products to complete repairs. Victor helps oversee the daily operations of the Palm Desert warehouse, cross-trains new employees, assists at the service counter, ensures parts are available, and makes deliveries. He's a dependable worker who knows the importance of keeping the warehouse stocked and is an essential part of the team. He's very analytical. If there's any variance to an inventory item, he will determine how the conflict occurred and take steps to resolve the issue. Oh, I like that. Victor's hobby is restoring classic cars, and he has 4 beautiful restored classic Chevrolet vehicles, a 1937 sedan, a 1954 truck, and 2 Impalas, a 1962 convertible, and a 1965 sedan. And also, he's president of the Latino Classics, a local car club. I bet that 62 convertible is nice, huh? And so, come on up. We have, what do we have? We have this beautiful little memento here, and we'll get some photos.
I would like to make a small correction.
Yeah.
Our cars, because otherwise. I'm gonna go by the cars.
Play it safe, you know, play it safe.
That's happened before. She would have get that straightened out. I'll hear about it.
Congratulations. You have an opportunity to say something before you retire officially.
I'm gonna put it.
Okay.
He's not retiring, is he?
I think so. 1, 2, 3.
So what color is the convertible?
Blue. Water district blue.
He's like 30
No,
years.
it's been great, 30 years here, and been able to support my family, my kids, my grandkids, and they will get, like I said, 4 cars and another one in the backyard to go, so and hopefully some more, so.
Work on that one.
Yeah, my retirement project,
Awesome.
so that's it.
Good.
Thank you guys very much.
Be well, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Our cars. All right.
Surprised you were able to get through there.
We should probably find out.
Probably a couple years ago I couldn't.
Maybe we should reserve the seat that Jeff's in, so there's great more walk-around space.
Very nice. All right, so, I wonder if I lost all my other stuff. We did not have anything in the written communications. Okay. And then we have one action item. Wow. This is the authorized general manager to execute a professional service agreement with SDI Presence LLC for $131,000. Looks like Carrie Swaney's coming up to do the presentation. And is this the ERP that our general manager said we weren't going to do?
Yeah.
But we're doing it anyways.
Well, we weren't going to do it about 2 years ago, then we weren't going to do it last year, but I think we're getting close to the time where it's probably appropriate.
Yeah, appreciate the comment. Good, go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well, good morning, President Powell, members of the board, and staff. This request was presented to the Finance Committee back on October 1st. I am prepared to go through the entire presentation, but please let me know if you want me to skip through it. I do have Patrick Griffin from SDI Presence LLC present in case you have additional questions after my presentation. I also want to acknowledge all the department heads, this is general managers, and also Mr. Barrett for their cooperation in providing information and also support to move this project forward. So last June 2020, SDI Presence LLC did complete the strategic assessment and gap analysis of our existing ERP and UB system. A final report was presented to the board last year, and I went ahead and attached it to the agenda again for this particular item for your review. So the final recommendation is to replace the existing ERP and UB system because we did find over 46 functional gaps across all the modules. So on the agenda today, I am going to be going over the purpose of this presentation, a brief history of the our existing ERP and UB system, discussion on what the ERP and the UB system is, the recommendation, and also the phasing and the timing of this replacement.
Okay.
So the main purpose of this presentation is to really go through the planning stage. So the district put together a steering committee. It consisted of both AGMs and also the department directors. And the objective is to plan and to discuss the replacement of the ERP and the UB system because it is the core system for us. And replacing it can be a daunting activity. So it is critical for us to eliminate majority, if not all, of the functional gaps. And we also want to improve data security and prevent the possibility of compromising data integrity resulting from the use of multiple customized systems. As I mentioned in the Finance Committee, I have personally been involved in 3 major financial system updates and implementations. So I do not recommend this lightly. It is a very daunting task, and it's a huge undertaking for the district. In each of those implementations, there's always lessons that I learned, and part of it really, one factor that always came back is to have proper planning. So no implementation will go perfectly smooth, but the hope is that the proper planning can help eliminate the challenges that may come along. So for this presentation, again, our main purpose is to seek the board support in hiring SDI Presence to begin the procurement phase of the new ERP and UB system. It is the first step in the planning stage. As each entity is unique, it is important for us to create a solid scope of work to satisfy the district's needs. So it is also important for us to hire a consultant with no ties to any of the potential vendors so that we can ensure an objective process. The overall impact for this recommendation is $131,000, and it is planned to be phased in into 2 fiscal years. So $56,000 for this fiscal year, which was part of our budget, and then $75,000 in the next fiscal year, 2023, that we're going to be proposing. At the end of this presentation, I will go over the timing. We wanted to make sure that this process is phased in so it does not interfere with SCADA and also with NextGen. The plan is to have those implementations start by the time those 2 systems are fully implemented. So this slide right here just kind of shows you a brief history of our ERP and the UB system. So the Naviline system was actually launched in the 1980s and the 1990s. They did some upgrades on it. We did end up acquiring it back in 2008, 2009. But since that time, they haven't really had any upgrades, or they just kind of kept the system going. So in the last 12 years, we've had to do a lot of multiple patchworks and actually acquiring third-party systems just so that we can take advantage of essential functions of the system. So we acquired third-party systems just to supplement the functions. I'll go through the next slide. So what is an ERP? So it's an enterprise resource planning system. So if you can see in this slide, it is the main hub for all the systems. So, you know, it provides financial systems, provides a utility. It also talks to engineering for the masterwork system, the human resource for payroll, and also the facility. So NextGen is our new asset management system that is needed to work with the existing ERP system. So this is just a quick slide on that. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the strategic assessment and the gap analysis. I'm going to kind of go through some of the bullets in here. For the cost consideration, I'm going to skip that to the end when I go over the estimated costs. Improve billing accuracy and revenue. So I do want to acknowledge Director Scott Burrett because he did provide us a great analysis on this section. Based on AWWA and other utility groups, focus groups, utility companies lose about 3% to 10% in potential revenue for not having a full-scale analysis on how their billing system is. Okay, so our tiered rate system is complicated, so it's very important for us to have the tools, the analytical tools, to help us identify a lot of these, missed bills. But right now, we don't have those tools. So if we just use the 10% average of potential loss based on AWWA numbers, potential loss can go up to 8.2 million annually. But again, that's a big number. We can't know exactly what potential loss is because we don't have the analytical tools in the system now to identify those potential losses. Customer communications, that's another big area for us. The only customer communication method that our existing system support is U.S. mail. So that means we had to go through and kind of do a third-party systems to supplement that communications with the customers. So we have Paymantis, Everbridge, and then a lot of telephone calls and emails and texts. So again, it kind of goes hand in hand with reliance on the third-party systems for that. Self-service portals. A lot of customers have been asking us for greater access to their data, for their consumption, for their work order status. We do not have that capability right now for the customers to access their information online. So that means, again, calling customer service, handling everything through phone or through an email. The Naviline support has been declining in the last couple of years. Again, we're just doing patchworks to make it work at this point. For example, the next-gen system, we had to pay an additional $200,000 just to have the two systems talk. And even then, it took about, I think, more than a year for them to respond, or a year to respond, just to request for a proposal. How much is it going to cost us for you guys to talk to us? And I wanted to give you guys a heads up that, fortunately, through the grapevine, finance found out that Union Bank has been bought out by U.S. Bank. They have not officially announced it. They're announcing it in April and June next year. So now we're trying to start the process now, getting ahead of it, getting into Naviline to let us know what do we need to do, because changing that banking system for us has a huge impact on customer service and for us, because then we have to contact all our third-party vendors to try to get all of that formatting changed, updated. So that's upcoming next year. System capabilities and limitations. So for example, in the last year, Senate Bill 998 was implemented with new government regulations implementations. System can't keep up with it. So customer service went from an automated process to a manual process just to comply with SB 998. The system interface, again, another example in that, we just did a measurement. So last year, we had 26,731 canal water orders, and we had 15,000 applications for domestic water service, address information updates. Most of the new modern ERP systems can do that electronically by customers logging in and providing this information. But all of those calls, 26,000 calls and 15,000 emails and calls, had to be handled manually by customer service through phone. And they had to manually data entry it into multiple systems just to update the information. Reporting challenges, we could do more analytical work, spend more time analytically to actually go through and review the data, but we're spending so much time converting the data into a readable format for us and to be able to report it out back to you. So that's just a brief overview of the strategic assessment and gap analysis, what we found. So this slide right here kind of shows the benefits of going through and getting a new ERP system. I'm not going to read through all the bullets. I hope you had a chance to kind of go through it. But I do want to focus on probably at least two areas that might be a concern. One of the areas is, are we going to end up with the same thing where we're not updating? So part of the things that we're doing is, that's why it's very important for us to have a strong planning stage. We are going to be doing things differently this time. We are going to go through a full RFP. We're going to go through it. That's why we want to rush it. So this whole process of just procurement is going to take us about a year, because we want to make sure we write a full scope of work. We want to incorporate in the RFP that they're going to be required to give us updates and technical, for any changes, because technology changes almost constantly. Every year, every 6 months, you have something new that's coming up. So we want to incorporate that in the contract, that they're going to be required to update with us with very limited cost. So that's part of it. So, and then planning it. We want to make sure that we take the time to write the scope of work, do an evaluation, do a lot of vetting in terms of if we have to go out, look at other systems, how are other agencies using that particular system, going through the full demo, because we want to make sure that we find the right system that checks, if not all, at least most of the boxes that will satisfy our needs. And then another one for that, another one with Jeff's blessing. I have been working on restructuring the chart of accounts the last 2 years, on and off. That includes restructuring it, planning the data mapping. I've kind of have that worked out, because sometimes that's what takes time for implementation, is having to wait to have that data converted. So I've been working on that in the last 2 years as well. So this slide right here, I just want to remind of, this is just a guide. We went out and looked at other agencies that recently replaced their ERP in their UB system, and kind of got information on how much it cost them, what their annual maintenance cost. But again, each district is unique. So it really depends on how we write the scope of work, and also what we get in a proposal to find out the overall cost. So, but this is kind of like a good guide of what's been
Yeah.
spent.
So on this, I mean, it kind of seems like they're all over the place.
Yeah.
But the two that are similar to us, Eastern Municipal and Desert Water Agency, looks like they're both kind of in a similar position as
Yes.
where we are right now. Are you going to be keeping lines of communication open with them
Yes.
as you go through this? 'Cause
Yes, and actually Eastern did talk to me, and I ended up recommending SDI, and they're working with SDI now to do their assessment, and they're finishing the assessment, and they're going forward with the RFP. So Eastern has also hired SDI for their procurement process. So I have a very strong communication with the director of, actually the AGM for the finance department in Eastern. So the next slide right here, I'm sorry, I meant to rename the label. I kind of did not get to do it by the time I uploaded it. So the annual cost is actually representative, or the proposed cost. So the $500,000 there is based on, we're estimating, let's say if we do 7 million. I use 7 million based on the guide that was provided in the previous slide. 500,000 a year based on a 15-year repayment of the 7 million at 2%.
What's the set, 7 million is the,
It's if the cost of the system, or the cost of the implementation.
you're estimating the total cost?
The total cost is 7. Again, I don't want to, it's just a number that I kind of put together based on the guide from the previous page, but
That's plus this first $500,000 that we're going to pay, or 250,000?
250, the 131,000? That's that's plus the 131,000, sorry.
7 million all in.
Yes.
That's
Again,
a
it's an estimate.
That's probably a high end.
I'm trying to, is it, again, based on the guide from the previous slide. But we won't know until we go through a full scope of work. So the 300,000 and the 100,000, that kind of remains similar to what our existing costs now, because no matter what, we're still going to have maintenance for the system and some integration. Because the key is, our plan is to find a system that would integrate fully with NextGen, because NextGen has a lot of functionality that's so beneficial to us, and we want to keep using NextGen. But we want to find a system that will, integrate with that 100%. So we can use all the functionality that NextGen has ability to provide to us. I'm sorry?
What's our cost now?
For
What's our annual cost now?
about 300, for maintenance, 300,000.
300,000.
Plus the 100,000 interface, so about $400,000 a year.
Okay, so we're gonna more than double that on the annual cost.
But I'm going to go over what the other costs are on the right side. The redirected costs is what we're actually costing us right now. So that 400,000 in purple represents our current manual process. So we did a full kind of analysis of what our manual functions are, and we kind of did a measurement of it. A lot of it, operations was very helpful in providing that data to us, and actually went a little conservative. I took it down. They actually had more, but I did take it down a little bit. So annually, based on their manual process, that I know for sure it's automated in most ERP and UB system, it's about $400,000. And then that $300,000 up top, I actually went, again, conservative on this number, and this is based on the potential billing error. And I'm basing that number based on a recent project that customer service completed, which is that revenue analysis for revenue assurance study that they did, and they found about 1,306 failed meters. And based on that project, they were able to identify and replace the billing process. They recaptured about $200,000 in revenue lost for that revenue assurance project. And so that's kind of like the comparison. The annual cost is the proposed cost. The redirected cost is what it's costing us right now. So it is overall a savings for us. And then again, I kind of go back to recommendation. Really, what we're recommending is for us to move forward and start the planning stage. Again, it's going to take at least 2 fiscal years, at least a good year, to get this process going. Based on what we've discovered in the last 2 years, based on the analysis, it's not even a question of if we need to replace the system. It's a matter of when. When do we need to replace it? And we need to start the process at this point to keep it going. So this slide right here is just kind of like a timing of, this is the issuance, evaluation, and selection phase. So this is what makes up the $131,000. So we're hoping if we approve it today, we can start the process in February of next year, go through phase 1 and phase 2, which is to initiate and assess the RFP. And then from July to September is when we publish it. And then from October to June, that's when we do all that I kind of talked about. We want to do a thorough review of the RFP and the proposals. We want to open up the RFP probably at a minimum 60 days so that it will give the proposals an opportunity to really provide us a good information on their proposals. And one of the things that we've agreed with SDI is, and I know sometimes some of the implementation fails because you hear all these systems that say, oh yeah, we can provide that function in a future series or a future release. We're not going to go through that because that's what happened. They promise something that they can do in the future and then they don't end up delivering. So what we're going to be doing is by the time we select the system, we're going to make sure that the system that we select satisfies majority of our boxes with their current system now, not something that's going to occur or they promise in the future. So that's going to be critical for us as well. And then the last slide right here, this is just a proposed implementation timeline. Again, so if you can see, if we do select a vendor by the end of fiscal year 2022, so June 23, we'll start the implementation July. We are going to be phasing it in. We have the core financials first. That one has to go in first because that's the whole system, the core system. That's why I've started working on the chart of accounts to kind of make it easier for us to implement that. The core financials on the first year, and then we'll go through the HR and the payroll system on the second year, and then the utility billing phased in on the third year. So by this time, this is work hand in hand with the completion of SCADA and the NextGen to make sure that IT have enough people to provide support. And also, of course, this is a system that affects the entire district. So we want to make sure that, operations have fully implemented their new gen to help us support, help with the implementation as well, especially with customer service too. So it's going to hit all the departments. And that kind of concludes my presentation. Again, SDI is here to answer any questions. I think all the other departments are also available if you have specific questions, and for myself as well.
So I have a question. Can you go back to the system history
Okay.
page? So if I'm reading this right, it looks like we spent $7.7 million and we finished the Naviline utility building in 2009. Is that correct?
That's when it started. As to when it actually ended, I was before my time, so I'm not quite sure, but that's when we purchased the systems. It's probably 2 to 3
And so
years.
we're replacing this system.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I mean, that's my concern, that we spent $7.7 million and 11 years or 12 years later, we're scrapping the whole system and spending another $7 million for a new system.
Well, I mean, based on the strategic assessment, I mean, it's at the point where we do have to replace the system because there's just new technology and new regulations. And part of it, I think, is because they did not update the systems. That's why we're kind of in the situation that we are right now, is Naviline stopped updating their system in 2010. And since that time, we've just been doing patchwork. If Naviline have kept up with the upgrades, or they kept on upgrading it to the new technology, it probably,
So I just,
sorry.
that doesn't make sense. So they stopped updating it in 2010.
The year after we acquired it.
We just put the thing in 2009.
Your mic's not on, and
Oh.
I'm.
I mean, that doesn't make sense, right?
That's why we're doing things differently this time. I can't speak for why we selected Naviline way back when, but that's why we're doing things differently, where we want to incorporate in the contract that there are going to be required to do technological updates, technology updates. It's going to be part of that contract and the
So
agreement.
we saw this at the Finance Committee a few weeks ago, and I don't know how you take care of not finding ourselves in that same situation, but the one comment that I did have at the committee was, it looks like the year after we got this, we started doing patchwork, so that was exactly what I was concerned about as well, and so I don't know how you
Yeah.
ensure that doesn't, I think you just made a comment about the contract and such, but,
Yeah.
it's concerning.
I'll invite Luis to kind of talk about how the system is before my
Yeah, because
time.
you've already paid them by the time, so if they bail on you, how are you going to?
Yeah. Good morning, President Powell and members of the board. So that's a very important question, and I think it's a fair question. And the reality is that the district purchased a system that was about to have end of life. There was a process that was implemented similar to this. When the recession hit, that process sort of was scrapped, and there was almost a personal decision done to acquire the system, and the system was already technically outdated. So there's no dancing around that. It was a system that was procured aside from the recommendations that were put together in a similar process that was done in 2006 to 2008.
One could say it was personality driven.
Yes.
The former GM had hired their finance director, who had previously worked at the city of La Quinta, and the city of La Quinta was using this exact system. So she had a familiarity with this and was her preferred solution. I mean, all this happened before I got here. None of the department heads were department heads at the time. Some of them were, staff here, but had no real input into the process. But, Steve hired Amy, and Amy wanted this system, and that's the system that Steve gave Amy.
In fact, when I got hired, I couldn't believe that they had just bought that system, because I was trying to get rid of it in Indio. And so it was,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, it's water under the bridge, but to your point, yeah, it was a bad decision. And so now we're paying the consequences for this.
So is this new system the latest and the greatest? Because I'd rather
Yeah.
spend more money for the latest and the greatest than get something in the middle
Well,
that we
we
have to
We don't
replace in 10
know,
years.
we don't know what we're buying yet.
So one of the reasons we have a vendor agnostic
Yeah, that's why we're going
consultant
through a process.
is that this vendor doesn't care about what we end up. He looks at our business needs based on the feedback from the different departments and the current business processes, and they make that recommendation. And this time, we're actually going to follow the recommendation. Unfortunately, last time there was a recommendation put on the table, and that process was not followed through. And it was a one-sided decision.
Yeah, can we, can we have the consultant answer this question? Because
Sure.
I think the system aging out is the same concern that I had at our finance committee meeting, and I'm still uncomfortable with that. How we anticipate and plan for that.
Thank you. I appreciate being here this morning. We're going to take you.
You might
through-
introduce yourself
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry, Pat Griffin from SDI. I apologize.
That's okay.
We're going to take you through a process, and it's a very methodical process for identifying your needs, your specific needs of this organization, developing an RFP, a comprehensive RFP, putting it on the street, and as Carrie said, for minimum 60 days, so that we get good responses from competent software providers. And there are a handful of good providers. We know who they are. We're going to reach out to them, make sure they have your RFP, so that we know that they're going to be responding. Now, the RFP will be on the street for anyone to respond to, but we also know who the key players are out there that can satisfy the needs of this organization. Then we're going to invite the top folks back, and how we get to the top folks is not just SDI saying, pick these. We're going to be working with you to determine who the top 2 or 3 vendors are that we want to look at with you. And then we take them through a multi-day process. It's rather painful, I will tell you. Several days of what we call proof of capabilities, or POC, where we've provided all of the vendors that we're looking at with a specific script that they go through, and they demonstrate to your directors that their system can do the functional needs of this organization. So we're going to give them data, and we're going to ask them to spit out information back to this organization and show that their software works. Then a decision will be made about who the top one is. We'll help go out and help with due diligence, talk to other agencies about the success of that top vendor, how it's working for them, and get to a final decision. We are not a part of that decision, and what I mean by that is we don't get a vote. We're helping guide your organization with that decision, and we're certainly going to give you input and feedback through the process, but you're going to make that ultimate decision about which vendor it is. We know the marketplace. We know which vendors have software that works and will work for you, and that's why we're here, to help you get to that conclusion, so that you're not in a position in 5 or 7 years where you're saying, why isn't our software working? We want to make sure it's stable and works for you. And just FYI, and I'm not trying to sell, but we're in the middle of this process. We just finished it with Indio a year ago. They just implemented their new software system. We took Cucamonga Valley Water District through this process 2 years ago. They've implemented their new system. And as Carrie said, we're working with Eastern right now to go through this exact process. So our goal is to help get you stabilized and not have you in the position that you're in with Naviline right now.
Okay, thank you. Just my last question for Carrie. You mentioned this $8.2 million, I heard an $8.2 million revenue savings.
Yeah, that's.
What is that?
That's based, if we use the AWWA average potential revenue loss due to misbill or errors in billing.
And what is AWWA?
Oh, sorry. Oh, gosh, now you cut me off. American Water Works Association. So
Industry
it's a 10% of our revenue, so that's about 8.2. 8.2 million.
So you're saying that this new system implementation will result in a organizational savings of 8.2 million?
Well, it's just an example, but I don't know
Yeah, okay.
exactly.
Is that a year?
That's in a year. But like just recently, we just focused on the high consumption users,
understand.
and that we got $200,000 out of that we recouped.
And as we catch those, that number will
The
be
number will
diminished.
diminish, yeah.
Let me say something.
Thank you.
And Director Bianco, so another thing is that this project was suggested several years ago, and we just, in good conscience, we couldn't bring it into the board 5 years into the project. So we actually been pushing it to maximize the return on the investment of the district. So by the time the system actually gets implemented, it will be 15 years old. 15 years old is actually a fair time frame to replace or look at replacement of any systems, especially of this kind of system. Because even 10 years ago, the systems were still very much behind, when it comes to technology. So ERPs have matured significantly in the recent years. We're also looking potentially to a cloud-based solution, which is more cost-effective for the district. So we're going to be looking at all the potential savings. There'll be hopefully a number of external systems that will be replaced to consolidate and reduce expenses. And again, by improving business processes, because there is a lot of patching and things like that we got to do, stitching to get things working. I think there's going to be a lot of efficiencies. And the final most important thing is that this ERP is no longer being enhanced. It's being maintained because the vendor is developing a new solution. It's actually called One Solution, but they just don't have a utility billing. So their goal is for them to develop that so we can do a parallel upgrade, and it won't be cheap either. I mean, we're going to have to buy it too. But they essentially have finish developing or building enhancements in the system. They're patching it to make it work. The last thing they did was to create a web interface, and they told us that was the last thing they were going to do. And we can see a number of agencies leaving them. I mean, just in the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen about 12 large customers left them already because they're not doing anything with the system. So I think we're at a good time to transition, and by the time this is done, the district will probably recover some of the return on the investment. It was still a better system than what we had before anyway, so that's my comment.
Okay. All right. Well, good presentation, Carrie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I think I've heard enough. The savings are unknown, but we have ideas of what it might be, right?
Mr. President, I'll move approval of the agreement.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion before we vote? And thanks for coming in. I forget your name already.
Pat.
No problem. Thank you for coming in, Pat. All right, then let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passed 4-0.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks, Carrie.
thank you. Board member general comments. Let's start with Director Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one item to mention that's not on the comments below, which is that I did watch Jim do the Palm Springs Life, the Desert We Want. He did an excellent job. I thought the comments on the conservation and groundwater replenishment program were particularly useful. And I saw the count on the screen, and it didn't seem like there were a ton of people on there, but I think they placed it on their website and so people can go and look at it again. So I would encourage folks to go and watch it. It's very
And
good.
it's on YouTube. I haven't even seen it yet,
Yeah.
but I was
Yeah.
well coached prior to the.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Katie.
Anyway, you did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
I emailed it out yesterday if anybody needs it. Let me
Was that a live thing? I thought you were out of town when that happened.
No, it was
was
taped. It was video.
It was live it was videotaped. It was live when we did it, but we did it about 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
They photoshopped me in, just like we're going to do with.
Well, I was wondering about that. I haven't seen it yet, but I look forward. I've heard good things from other people too. Director Bianco.
Thank you.
No comments.
I don't have any comments.
Okay, I'll pass also. So let's get into the meetings. September 30th, Ledge, Mr. Strata. I think we had a report on that already, but you were
Yeah,
not in the room.
Yeah, I guess I'll just note that we, at least, well, we went through the bills and, but it sounds like AB 588 is gonna be one of our priorities this year, and that's that 2-year bill for compliance for chromium, well, for any, new MCL, so, that's a bill that's being carried by Assemblymember Garcia, and, it looks like we're gonna be pretty involved in that, and then, I just wanted to make comment, I don't know, Jim, if you have an update on, I know I saw the email regarding the 7 million allocation from Department of Finance. I think there was some chatter about them kind of working on an agreement, and I know that that was something that we went over. I just wanted to see if,
Yeah, I'll defer to staff.
okay.
Good morning. So we've been in discussions now with Department of Finance and State Water Resources Control Board. We've set up a staff meeting, I think it's tomorrow, to start talking through what kind of paperwork processes that they need. So the ball is rolling, but right now we're sort of in one of those red tape positions where we're going to have to turn in lots of paperwork and all that process, similar to a grant. So we've got a meeting scheduled and we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And, okay,
Yeah,
so
go
that
ahead.
was, so that's moving forward, so that's good stuff. And then I think I have the next two, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Finance Committee, we spent, I mean, we went over the usual kind of, investment policy, performance, et cetera, and then we spent, a good amount of time on this same subject regarding the ERP. So, we talked about that already. And then on, the 4th, I believe that was a meeting with State Water Board related to them wanting to set aside some money in case of an emergency. We kind of talked about just some process about who would call the money, right? Who would say, okay, it's available. I think we decided that the state would kind of be in charge of saying that the money could be used, and then right now it's just to be kind of set aside until it's needed, and that was it.
Okay, thank you. 14th, Director Bianco,
But that was a late scratch.
didn't happen, all right. And then 14th, also Water Education Foundation virtual tour, Director Aguilar.
Yeah, it was great. It was, of course, done virtually. It was hosted by Nick Gray and Jennifer Bowles, and they combined both live shots with video, and it started in Sacramento Valley. Talked about, all of the major hydrology projects there. It was really interesting. I found it very useful.
Good. That same day, October 14th, I was attending the Desert Valleys Builders Association board meeting. Pretty standard stuff there. I don't think anything interesting to report. October 20th, Indio Subbasin Alternative Plan.
I wasn't there.
Not there?
No.
And then Director Nelson has one that we'll save on the 25th. Let me just say I had a couple of others that are not on the list. October 22nd with Director Strata, we met with Salton Sea Authority Executive Director O'Dowd to discuss the North Lake proposal. We met here, actually. And I believe Executive Director O'Dowd is going to be returning with a more formal proposal. I mean, I think the question there is, where is their water source? And, we talked about a few different types of water. I mean, you have drain water, you have well water, if they had wells, and you have Colorado River water. And there's, issues with all three of those. I mean, I think that if there was an ask, it would have been, they want 3,000 acre feet a year of Colorado River water. Don't know that they actually need that, but the question is, how do you get that? And I think I'd like to wait to see a more formal ask than. But it was a good meeting. I actually think the project is really cool. If there's funding for it, and then the real problem is, where do you get the water?
I think at the end, he kind of mentioned that the project could probably get away with just 1,000, because I think the total is maybe the 3,000, but if you blend it with the drain water, you get there. And so, you know, one of the other things that was mentioned in that meeting that kind of sets a timeline of by when we should try to at least get some more definite answers as to what sources of water the project can rely on. As the project is moving through the state with the environmental and the CEQA and NEPA, and is getting geared up to get into more detailed design, it's a question that we need to at least try to get a better sense of within the next, I would say, 60 to 90 days. So that's kind of a frame of reference there.
Right.
But we did talk about some unique options related to that storage.
The Mid-Canal Reservoir.
Yeah, and so I don't remember the number you said about potential savings and waste. I think it was like 1,000.
728 acre feet is the storage capability. So yeah, one rain event where we shut off would save, 1,000 acre feet in the summertime.
Okay. So there was a thought about, and this is something that we can explore further, but I don't, I think I heard that San Diego was thinking of paying for that, but the idea was that maybe we could get the state to pay for the project as a way to create this water, which could be available for the sea. So one potential idea. And I think that there would be some willingness from the state's part to pay for it. And what was the cost of that?
8 million.
Okay. All right. So that, that was the bulk of the conversation.
That would be a very detailed discussion, because
Yeah,
the
there-
water that's being saved is San Diego's water, not
Well,
the state's water.
Depends who pays for it, I guess.
Well, it's a cost avoidance, because San Diego is now paying for the panel repairs.
Right.
And the way we're selling it to San Diego is there will be less panel repairs if you pay for this project.
Right.
But the concern is whether or not the amount of water they currently get from the panel construction is going to remain. And that's their primary concern, and we've
Well,
told
no,
them,
I understand
yes.
that, and probably better for an offline discussion.
Yes.
Because it's a little complicated. I mean, I have
As I said.
concerns, yeah, you have that whole, which I'm not up to speed on, of the latest discussions with San Diego, and then we have the whole question of, using Colorado River water outside
Yes.
of ID1 for a project that's not currently using any water.
Yeah.
So all that stuff, we're going to need to explore in
Yeah.
detail.
Well, the other idea, now that we're talking about it, is that you would, annex that area. And so, I mean, I don't know what's controversial about that one, so.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of
Well, there's
potential
a lot of
issues.
options.
So hence the report on the meeting.
Yeah,
We're still talking about the meeting.
It's complicated. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of complications. Anyways, it was good. It was a nice meeting, nice project. Then I also had yesterday, at the request of the Building Industry Association of Southern California, just a fairly informal meeting. I guess they're looking to create more of a presence for themselves in the Coachella Valley, even though they did that a couple years ago, but I guess they're going to redo it again. Not hiring any staff, but bringing in a couple of consultants to be their feet on the ground in the valley, which would be Brian Nastandi, who's now out on his own, and Mark Trost. So those are apparently they're going to be their local, Mark I don't think lives in the valley, but they're going to be their local presence here. So anyways, I met with them. Good luck to them. And then any other meetings that we need to report on?
I have several.
Okay, go ahead.
On the 18th and the 19th, I was at a conference at the Pechanga Resort in Temecula. And that was a conference with California Association of Mutual Water Companies. I was there to participate in a panel discussion that was centered around how larger systems can engage mutual water companies and small water systems. It was several workshops. There was a reception. I have a hard time pronouncing his name, but Adel H. Khalil was there. He was the main speaker during the reception. He was there both days, but I got a chance to meet him. Sat next to him at the reception. Had a great time talking to him. It sounds like they're also moving in a direction to try to establish a DAC, ad hoc committee, similar to what we've done here at the district. There is, I think, a want from some of their board members that met to start looking at how to consolidate other systems within the neighboring cities, et cetera, et cetera. So Assemblymember Garcia was the speaker the next day during the lunch reception. So that was the 18th to 19th. On the 20th, I had a meeting with the Salton Sea Authority, Natural Resources Agency in Riverside County to talk about the North Lake project, which is where we talked about the issues that we just talked about. And then on the 22nd, you already reported on that. So those were my additional
Good,
meetings.
thank you. Any others? Anthony? No. No? All right. Is there a motion to approve the per diem for the meetings reported on?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's passed. General manager report.
Yes, sir. Back from vacation. I've got just the COVID updates. 112 recovered positive cases, 4 current positive cases, 1 direct contact. Still 2 mortalities, and now we have 5 off work because of COVID-related situations, the 4 positive and the 1 direct contact. Cases to date for the month of October are 6. The HR staff is currently working with the district's 3 bargaining units regarding the effects bargaining related to the district's vaccination policy. All district employees will need to be fully vaccinated by December 8th, 2021, or have an approved medical or religious exemption on file. And then we've got a couple more makeups for the vaccine education information. One of those is today at 2 p.m. and then I've got 2 of them on Thursday. So that'll bring the total up to 21 different sessions that I've had with the employees, and hopefully I've contacted all of them.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I've got, sir.
Have we had any approved exemptions?
Not to my knowledge, sir, no. We've had a couple of requests, but I don't believe Scott has done the actual interview and approval.
Okay, so it's in process?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just I'm curious that that's a functional exemption and not just something that can't be accomplished. Yeah. Okay, so council report?
Yes,
Jeff?
thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to update you on another new piece of legislation that was signed by the governor, SB 274. The Brown Act requires that if a member of the public wishes to receive copies of agendas and/or the agenda packets, that it's an annual request and that it's sent out via mail. Obviously, with technology, that can be done more efficiently from both sides by way of an email. And SB 274 now places into the law itself, the Brown Act statute itself, the requirement if there is a request for a copy of the agenda or agenda packet via email, that it needs to be provided that way unless the documents cannot feasibly, or they're too large or anything like that, then they can be mailed out. But the Brown Act has now been updated to at least meet the technology of email requests for agenda and agenda packets, with the caveat that if it's a large document that cannot be emailed, then other accommodations can be made. That's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have any departmental reports?
No, sir.
No? Good. Then at this time, the board will recess into closed session to discuss the 2 items on the agenda. We will reconvene to report out We'll reconvene open session to report out after closed session.
You gotta figure out how to take someone.
Okay, good. The regular meeting is reconvened, and we do not have any reportable action from closed session. And hearing no objection, we are adjourned.